How's it going, everybody? Rival Indigo here, and I just wanted to give some thoughts on Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, specifically something I'm reading here from the Washington Post. The article's called Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, Main Nix Level Scaling. That's an issue. So, I agree with that statement, but I disagree with the author on why that's an issue and what their, I guess you could call it, motivations are. So first I'm going to read a couple bits here from the article. Essentially, it's talking about how the Pokemon Presents that talked about Scarlet and Violet basically said that you'll be able to progress through the game however you want, go to whichever gym you want on the way and plot your own path to Victory Road. The problem is, the Presents also said that there will be essentially some of the gyms will be more difficult than others, and some are just like the gym next door that you can go hit up if you want. So that implies, according to the article, and I would agree in its logic, that there's no level scaling, that the difficulties of the gyms are preset. So they say here, to quote Washington Post, to understand why that seemingly innocuous pair of sentences would give players pause, you'll first need to understand level scaling, a game mechanic where enemies don't have set levels but instead increase in level proportionally alongside a player's own level. This is typically used in open world games to ensure a player has a smooth experience. They won't run into overpowered enemies, nor feel underwhelmed by incredibly weak ones, no matter how they choose to explore the environment. They said, so that's a big deal. So it's a big deal that the next generation of Pokemon games, the first open world titles in the mainline franchise's history, likely won't have this mechanic, especially for gyms, which are the series' version of major boss fights. The point of an open world is to explore at your own pace, following a path of your choosing. Removing level scaling, however, narrows the open world and by extension the paths players can reasonably pursue. And it goes on to talk about how if there's no level scaling and some gyms are more difficult than others, then you have essentially a difficulty gate, to progress the game still, which is true. And so I agree in the sense of it seems kind of stupid to have an open world game where you're going to go to a gym over here and it's going to be crazy challenging, and you're going to go to a gym over here and it's like no big deal, piece of cake. It seems a little silly, right? Level scaling makes sense. But I'm more concerned about level scaling when it comes to like trainer encounters and things like that as well. Because one thing I'll say about Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl, I haven't played the games between Diamond and Pearl and those, is that it felt like a lot of the trainers you encounter were just way too easy. The first couple routes and stuff, that makes sense. But then the gyms were very easy. All the gym trainers that were, populated those gyms were too easy. And even as you got later in the game, I'm accustomed to in older Pokemon games that things just get more and more challenging as you go leading up to the Elite Four. In BDSP, it really felt like about 75% of the difficulty was reserved for the Elite Four. Like the whole rest of the game was kind of a cakewalk. Then you hit the Elite Four and you're like, oh my god, I want to die. Anyways, back to Scarlet and Violet. These being open world games, which I have issues with that right out the gate. But if you're going to be doing an open world Pokemon game, it kind of doesn't make sense to not have level scaling. I think just for the fact of it seems silly to have super easy gyms and then super difficult gyms and things like that, right? These people are complaining that essentially it makes it so there is kind of a structure to the game. And that, in my opinion, is not a problem. Because one of the reasons I don't like the fact that this game is open world is, well, it makes it not structured. Like, one of the beauties of Pokemon games has always been that they have a progression to the map. And the progression through the towns and the gyms. Essentially, you're starting out your adventure like you would kind of if you were doing this in the real world in a little rural town, and you get your little starter and you're like, all right, time to head off on my adventure. And you head out on the routes toward the next little local rural town or stop. And along the way, you encounter whatever, species of Pokemon are there. They're usually like level 2 or 3. They're usually some sort of bird or rat. And you get a hang for, the mechanics of the game, the combat system, the wild encounters, and all that sort of thing. Then you reach the gym. And you're like, oh, okay, time to hit my first gym and battle them and see how that goes. And then from there, it opens up a bit more. Now you have a couple of places you could go. And various different little mini quests, or just continue along to the next gym, whatever you've got going on. As you progress and you become more skilled at the game and you advance beyond these hurdles, more and more of the game opens up to you and gives you more and more options for the Pokemon you encounter, the strength of those Pokemon, the strength of the trainers you encounter, and various other random challenges along the way. I love that about Pokemon. I feel like defining characteristics of Pokemon are the turn-based combat system between the monsters you collect, the wild encounters of the monsters you collect, and I'm sorry, I feel like the wild grass is a preferred method over just having Pokemon on the overworld, except for in like specific scenarios, and having to essentially like earn your way to other parts of the map and advancing the little storyline, your little quest to become, champion of all the gyms and move on to the Elite Four. So that's why I have a problem with this, is first of all, I feel like open world takes away from that, and I feel like open world in many cases, and I know there people will agree with me, because we've started to see it in more and more games, where open world is just an excuse to be lazy. You really don't have to do as much work. I mean, and I don't generally like to talk down about game developers or whatever, because I feel like there's a lot of creative people and they do really cool things, and in many cases I really appreciate the work they do. However, there are so many times where open world or multiplayer mechanics are generally just kind of an excuse to not build a well-crafted gamer's experience. You turn on that game and you feel like somebody has created this world and set out this path for you to explore, or storyline for you to get engaged in, and it feels like real creative work was done to make that for you, to build that world around you. Open world, unless it's like really well done and set in specific types of games, oftentimes just feels like a drag and drop cop-out. Like, look at it. Like, in this case, they now just place the gyms in whatever towns they're in, and they open the whole world, and they say, okay, go do whatever. Instead of actually having to think through and essentially kind of like storyboard the adventure, and then set you off on that adventure and have you go, wow, this is great, and you keep running into these really cool things happening, and what Pokemon are going to be available in this route, or this hidden area here, and how do I access that area? Is there somewhere else I have to progress through first, or something I haven't done yet? And I feel like when you just kind of drag and drop open world into a franchise, which is essentially what's happening here, it's not good for it. And back to the article here, their critique of this again is not that, hey, the leveling thing, the lack of a scaled leveling is kind of a silly concept if you're doing an open world game, right? Like, I'm not a fan of that, doing open world, but if you're doing one, yeah, as you progress and get stronger, then the stuff around you kind of needs to progress and get stronger. That's my viewpoint. Theirs is that essentially it's going to lead you to have to do the gyms in some kind of order anyways. Because, hey, if this one's super strong, you're not going to be able to beat it until you kind of progress through these other ones first. And in my viewpoint, I'm like, well, that's kind of a bonus. That adds a little structure to the game. And then Legends Arceus, they bring this up and they say, and I'm quoting the article again, earlier this year, Pokemon Legends Arceus took a crack at creating an open world experience in certain areas. It too faced several stumbling blocks in the transition, particularly around graphics and tech, and I fully agree with that. Those washed out, like bleached looking, flat, generic graphics, I cannot stand, and I really don't like that they're doing that again with Scarlet and Violet. That being said, one major change for the series, its lack of gym leaders, worked hand in hand with the open world structure. Players weren't funneled into a predetermined path. Do we want challenge? You know, like it's an RPG, first of all. And I know it's not like a hardcore RPG. You know, in many ways, it's the RPG aspects of it are kind of casual compared to others. But those aspects I feel are important to it. Having these bosses and those bosses be in the format of gym leaders and their minions is the way Pokemon does bosses. And so you take that away. I'm sorry, I don't think that's a great idea. Oh, players weren't funneled into a predetermined path. So what? So what? The people who are creating a game are creating experience and say, hey, go here and do these things. Check it out. It's going to be cool. It's just like, it'd be like, that if you turn every game into a create your own adventure book, you know, except for even in the case of the book, they still had to write those additional pathways. In the game, they literally just like, here's the sandbox, do your own thing. And in some cases that might be great, but when your game has a storyline and these other various progression challenges that to me are key to the experience that is called Pokemon, then taking those things away is not a positive. And it says, it appears as though Scarlet and Violet take heavy inspiration from that game. Some open world traveling features teased for the 2 upcoming games, like flying, appear nearly identical in function and animation. I don't like that at all. I think this, what would you call it? Demoting the legendaries, the box art legendaries of these games to being motorcycles and paddle boats is like, why would you do that, bro? Just give us a freaking bicycle, you know? Like, remember when that was a thing too? You had to actually like unlock the bicycle, and it kind of it changed how you traverse the world, and it was really exciting from that point on. We're gonna make the box legendaries now a motorbike, you know, or a glider. I just don't know about that. And then we go down here further, and this is what this is something I really didn't like. Basically they're complaining about difficulty, the difficulty gate. There it is. If you present fans with an open world, they'll want to explore it in any order they choose. Why create a difficulty gate by making some gyms you need to clear 8 to reach the end game require a higher level to beat than others? Okay, like I said, I feel like if you're doing an open world game, not having level scaling is kind of silly. But that's not the complaint of the author here, and I feel like that's a problem for many people that are critiquing these games or coming out with articles talking about them, is that they're not looking at the overall picture. They're like, well, but it's difficult, you know, it makes it hard. And it's like, yeah, maybe it'll be challenging. Maybe you'll have to think about where you go and what you do to try and get to your end goal, not just kind of wander wherever, you know, and hope that eventually you complete the game. So I feel like that maybe the open world thing and challenging the gyms in whatever order you want, or when, you know, that sort of thing, maybe that should have been left for post game. Because honestly, like, come on, 90% of the gameplay of Pokemon is really in the post game. You know, you complete the campaign, you explore the world and the adventure, you know, see these characters, unlock stuff along the way. You get that satisfaction, right? Progression, you know, getting through the hurdles, beating the bosses, you know, all that sort of thing. And once you get to the end, you open up a whole new like world basically that's no longer bound by the campaign and the storyline. And at that point, I feel like you should, if you're going to do open world, then have level scaling gyms and have it so you can go to whichever one you want and challenge them at any point you want. So anyways, that's just my thoughts. I'm kind of middle of the road right now with Scarlet and Violet. I've had a lot of personal excitement about Pokemon ever since Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl. That brought me back to Pokemon gaming. like, it's weird to me. I see a lot of criticism of those games, but to me, they are true to Pokemon, faithful remakes of the last great generation of Pokemon, Generation 4 with Diamond and Pearl. And it just has like modern housekeeping and things like that implemented, but otherwise, like, that got me back into Pokemon gaming, because I totally skipped Sword and Shield. I definitely didn't play Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, and I definitely didn't play Legends Arceus. But BDSP is absolutely fantastic. I'm approaching 500 hours put into those games, beating the campaign, doing shiny hunting and breeding, going online, doing trading. Like, it's absolutely fantastic in my opinion. And I just worry that between that and Pokemon Go on kind of the casual mobile side, getting me into like shiny hunting and you know, all that sort of stuff, that I don't want to fully buy into Scarlet and Violet and have it turn out to just be a massive disappointment for these other reasons. Because I don't want to end up just walking away from Pokemon gaming again, because I did. I totally left behind Pokemon gaming almost 20 years ago, after Generation 4. So I would like to continue on with that. I want to shiny hunt in Scarlet and Violet. I want to do breeding. I want to do competitive online. But I also want the game to feel like Pokemon. And I feel like we keep changing things for the sake of changing things without thinking about identity. Pokemon has an identity based on its specific, you know, gameplay mechanics, its specific, you know, world structure, and the way we build the game around the player's experience and the way they progress through it. And if you constantly and consistently, you know, chip away at that, then it's less and less of being Pokemon, and it starts becoming something else. So anyways, just wanted to drop that, some thoughts on everything after the presents. I wanted to kind of let that settle in, rewatch the trailer several times, see what reactions were, let my own feelings settle in, and that's basically where I'm at. Like, I'm like kind of middle of the road. I intend to get Violet and play it, but I don't have a whole lot of like excitement at this moment for it, so we'll just have to see. You know, hopefully there's new info that comes out that makes these games great. National Dex, guys, let's not make that mistake again. That's going to be huge. Like, please, there's no excuse for it. The second generation and fourth round of games on the Switch, and you potentially are going to leave out a complete National Dex again. There's literally no expense or excuse for it. So anyways, Rival Indigo, and I will see you in the next video.